are some late round running backs with massive upside that you aren't drafting. Why not? Hey, before I tell you about those running backs and why you need to draft them, let me remind you, flockfantasy.com/endgame is where you need to be this fantasy football season. Come play redraft against myself and Pierre. Try to win some cash, get some free endgame swag, not to mention our draft rankings, in-season rankings, bonus articles, bonus videos, everything you need to crush it this fantasy football season. Flockfantasy.com/endgame, the place to be. 30% off if you join today. Why aren't you drafting James Cook late in your drafts? Barely going inside the top 100 players, and in most casual home league type of drafts, he's going to go in the double-digit rounds as a complete afterthought. But things are starting to open up for James Cook, having a big season this year. Unfortunately, Nyheim Hines suffered a season-ending injury on a jet ski accident. Thankfully, he's okay, but his season is over. They've already ruled him out for the entire season. And that opens up the door for James Cook to have the entire pass-catching role in this backfield because nobody else can really do it. They've got Damian Harris, who is good between the tackles runner, a goal line runner, but he's not going to catch any passes. They've got Latavius Murray, another guy, a between the tackles, goal line type of guy, not a big pass catcher. James Cook is going to catch the majority of the passes out of this backfield, and this is a guy we know doesn't need a ton of touches. 10 touches, 12 touches, 15 touches, and this guy can make things happen. He's explosive, he's efficient, and in this offense, that's enough because defenses can't come in and try to stop the running game, worry about the running backs. They're worried about Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and this passing game. He's going to have plenty of running lanes, plenty of chances in open space, getting targets out in space. He's got great evasiveness, can make people miss. This is a guy who can be a high upside flex play in PPR leagues every single week of the season. Don't let him fall in your drafts. James Cook is going to have a big second year this year. Draft him anytime you can. And why aren't you drafting A.J. Dillon? Everybody loves Aaron Jones this year. What is it about Aaron Jones? Last year, everybody loved Aaron Jones because Davante Adams was gone and he had these crazy splits with and without Davante Adams. And oh my gosh, this is what he's going to do all season. He didn't. He was fine, but that's it. He was just kind of fine. Now this year he's going to be awesome because Aaron Rodgers is gone. Like what? This is like galaxy brain times 1,000 here. This is just way overthinking this. Sure, maybe the Packers will be more run heavy without Aaron Rodgers, but they weren't super pass heavy last year anyways. And if they are more run heavy, you know who's going to get the bulk of it? A.J. Dillon, because he profiles better as a guy you want to just give the rock to over and over again. Look, Aaron Jones was good last year. He was still efficient, but he's not a guy you want to give the ball 20, 25 times a game. That's more of what A.J. Dillon does. And we've seen it each of the last 2 years. Not only has A.J. Dillon seen his snap share go up, he had almost 50% of the snaps last year. I think we see that go up even more this year. But he also started to eat into the targets. He had an 8% target share, which might not be massive, but it closed the gap on Aaron Jones. He caught enough passes here. If the Packers actually do decide to be a more run-heavy team, which I don't think is necessarily going to be the case, but it could be, A.J. Dillon is going to be the big beneficiary of that. And look, one thing that really helped Aaron Jones a lot were those Aaron Rodgers dump-offs. He trusted Aaron Jones. I mean, remember back in that playoff game against San Francisco a couple years ago, 11 targets in that game? Aaron Rodgers trusted Aaron Jones. We don't know if that's the case with Jordan Love. Will he check it down to Aaron Jones at all? That's a big part of Aaron Jones's game, is those checkdowns, those receptions. I could see A.J. Dillon being almost as good as Aaron Jones from a fantasy perspective this year, but he's being drafted way later than Aaron Jones because people think Aaron Jones is going to have this big season and have completely forgotten about A.J. Dillon. If this offense really does decide to run the ball more to protect Jordan Love, that's only going to help A.J. Dillon. Get A.J. Dillon where you can. And why aren't you drafting Jerome Ford of the Cleveland Browns? Everybody is so excited about Nick Chubb now that Kareem Hunt is gone, as if Nick Chubb is the only running back who's going to touch the ball and no other running backs will even see the field. Jerome Ford is going to see the field, and don't be surprised if he inherits most or all of the Kareem Hunt role. The Browns GM even recently said one of the reasons they were so high on this guy and they wanted to draft him was because of what he could do in the passing game. Everybody just expects Nick Chubb to catch a ton of passes this year because Kareem Hunt is gone. But that's not what Nick Chubb does. That's not his role. It's never been his role. Sure, he can catch like the same way Derrick Henry or Kenneth Walker can catch, but they're just dump offs or the occasional, running back screenplay. He's not going to run routes where he can actually catch, high leverage passes. It's basically the play breaks down. Deshaun Watson can't scramble, doesn't see anybody, and he just checks it down to Nick Chubb. That's not going to get him to the 50, 60, 70 catch mark. Now, I'm not saying Jerome Ford is going to get to that mark. No chance at all. But again, Jerome Ford could be in this Kareem Hunt role. This is the NFL. This is 2023. No team is going to go in saying we're just going to give one running back 100% of the touches. Jerome Ford is going to have a much bigger role than people think. But also, Nick Chubb, coming off one of the highest touch totals of his entire career, was an absolute workhorse last year, and he stayed healthy. There's a chance we see Nick Chubb miss some games this year. Each of the 2 years prior, Nick Chubb missed games with injuries. He's got a lot of wear and tear on him now. He's over that 1,500 touch mark. This is the point where we start to see it. Running backs either start to miss games for injury, start to see a decline. If Nick Chubb misses games, Jerome Ford becomes the lead back. And we've seen it in the past with guys who aren't even good, like Dearness Johnson. When they take over the lead role in this Cleveland offense, they're great in fantasy. Jerome Ford is a capable runner. He's got the speed. He's not a plotter. He's a good pass catcher. They have plans for him in this offense, even with Nick Chubb healthy. But if Nick Chubb goes down, Jerome Ford is going to be an absolute must-add running back. Don't wait for that day. Draft him, stash him. He'll at least give you some decent flex value or a bye week fill-in value, but he's going to be one of the best handcuffs in all of fantasy football this year. And then why aren't you drafting Chuba Hubbard? And look, Chuba Hubbard doesn't excite me. I don't think he's anything more than just a jarb, as Pierre says, just another running back. But he's got a clear path to touches because, sure, they went out, they signed Miles Sanders. He's going to be the lead back. But behind him, it's just Chuba Hubbard, Blackshear, and Spencer Brown. Like, there is nobody behind these guys. If Miles Sanders misses time, Chuba Hubbard is going to have to be the guy because there's nobody else there. And Chuba Hubbard is a guy we've seen in the past, like when Christian McCaffrey missed time. He's capable enough to be at least an every week RB2 if he has to take over the starter job. And again, it's just Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, and two nobodies. So he's probably going to have a decent enough role even with Miles Sanders healthy. Another guy who I think can give you at least low-end flex value or bye-week fill-in type of value similar to Jerome Ford here, maybe even a little better than Jerome Ford. But if something should happen to Miles Sanders, he becomes pretty much an every week must-start RB2. In this offense with Bryce Young, a rookie quarterback, not a lot of passing game weapons, you got to think they're going to try to rely on the running game as much as they can. Miles Sanders can't handle 80, 90% of the work. Hubbard is going to have a role even when he's healthy, and he's going very late in drafts, and in some of your drafts, probably not even being drafted at all. I could see this guy being a waiver wire pickup, even if Miles Sanders is healthy, a guy who becomes a hot waiver wire pickup after people realize, like, hey, he's getting a decent amount of run, even with Miles Sanders healthy. Again, don't wait for that. Draft him. That way you don't have to spend your fab or use a waiver claim on him. He's already on your team, and you'll be ahead of the game. Now you know some running backs you need to be drafting late, but what about some early round running backs? Should you draft them or not? Find out here.